Welcome to the CyberJA podcast, the place where we discuss all things cybersecurity and GRC. I am Richard Perry, your cybersecurity and GRC enthusiast. The aim of this podcast is to provide a meaningful value added platform via which upcoming cybersecurity professionals like yourself can gain insights from various topics covering cybersecurity and GRC that will enable them to become professionals that the industry demands. Stay tuned for what next on the CyberJA podcast. For a great number of us, when we look at where we are now in our lives and also within our career journey, and I definitely believe to some extent, wish that we had a mentor or some form of mentorship or someone who had actually taken that time to share their success story with us in terms of their journey, their challenges, all of the various uphill tasks and challenges that they would have experienced as they go through their career journey, and the various ways in which they were able to overcome these many hurdles to be where they are at presently in their career journey. And of such, CyberJA welcomes Marylyn Harris as our guest today. Marylyn, welcome to CyberJA.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And interestingly, Marylyn is now a cybersecurity professional, but was once a Army veteran, and she is also a nurse and a number of other skill sets. Can you please let us in on the genesis of your career journey? As I'm so excited to kind of understand that alignment, that background in terms of cybersecurity and coming from your previous experiences.
Yes, I would be glad to share. It's not what most people think. It's all in alignment. I graduated from high school a very long time ago, and I knew I wanted to go to college. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, so I got to college and I studied biology, and I realized that I had several interests. And so I just kept going to college until I found something I really, really, really loved. And that ended up being nursing. And so I went to nursing. I was the equivalent of a licensed vocational nurse, an LVN in the Army. They actually paid for my first nursing license and training, which just opened up the whole world to me. Because when you're a nurse, you can work anywhere with any population because you have the training and prayerfully you have the compassion for people everywhere. And so that being a licensed nurse opened up my eyes to a whole new world. I started to have more of a global concept on what I could do. So I continued in school to become a bachelor's prepared nurse. And we call that a registered nurse here in the United States. And so that process took a little longer, but it was even more fulfilling. I started developing skills for management, learning how to deal with all kinds of people through our collaboration in a medical environment. Now, one thing to note, I was also in the Army part-time, and that was where my true leadership training began. In the Army, I was enlisted. I started out as an E3, which is uh, at the lower end of the spectrum, but I worked my way up. And I learned as I worked my way up, I became an X-ray specialist and eventually a trainer, a nurse trainer to people that were pursuing degrees and just certificates in healthcare. So when I got to the age of about 30, I was already there and didn't know it. I kept climbing. I pursued my graduate degree. I found my passion in nursing, the psychiatric mental health nursing. I earned my master's in nursing. And it was until I took a serious look at what I was doing every day that I realized I could do something in addition to carrying my skills with me. I really realized I could do something in business. And so I left nursing at the bedside and I decided to nurse in a business environment. I took a job with a pharmaceutical company where I began selling and promoting one of the drugs that I gave to my patients previously. I began promoting the drugs to a wider audience. And that business healthcare experience, it's all in one, a business and a healthcare experience, what I was doing. It opened up the whole world to me, literally. After a couple years of doing that, I decided it's time to move again. I needed to know more about the business aspect of being a clinician, like I had been at that point for over 15 years. And so I went back to school. I was the only nurse in my business school. Yes, I earned an MBA. And while I earned an MBA, I studied business on 5 continents. And so that gave me the global perspective that I needed. And bringing it back to the present, in 2018, I knew in the US, the healthcare system would need people like me, people that have known the system. I've been nursing since patients could smoke in their rooms while they were on oxygen. I've been nursing before the HTLV, or we call it the HIV virus, even started infecting people. I've been nursing a long time and I've learned some valuable skills and had amazing experiences with people on how to help them heal and be contented in their life. And so when the opportunity to pursue cybersecurity came to me, I said yes because I felt prepared. And I don't mean I was an automatic CISSP. What I mean is that I had enough life experience from safeguarding people in my family, safeguarding my patients, all their disease processes, medical records, PHI, PII, before we even called it that. I had that experience already. So I did not feel like a newbie going into cyber. What I had to do, and I knew it, and I knew it would take time, is I had to learn the cybersecurity ecosystem. I had to learn what a CISSP was. I had to learn about certifications. I had to learn how to get along with team members in the world of cybersecurity. But it was not strange to me because of the background I provided you previously about what I had already experienced. I was bringing tools, valuable tools and skills to cyber. I wasn't coming to cyber with nothing, only trying to take. I was coming to cyber to give. And finally, the other life experience that prepared me for my cybersecurity career was I'm the oldest of three in my household growing up. My mother's sister raised me because my mother died when I was 8, and my aunt raised me, and her kids were younger. So I had to secure them, my 2 cousins who were younger than me while my aunt worked. I had to secure the home. I had to make sure everybody was fed, the house was clean, and I still had good grades. So I was not a stranger to doing multiple tasks. And then when I went in the Army, I was a private, so I had to learn how to accept the responsibilities of other people until I was responsible enough to do things for myself. All that life training prepared me for cybersecurity. In addition to this one last fact, when I joined the Army, there was less than 3% women in the US Army in the early 80s. So when I got to cybersecurity, I was not and am not intimidated by an all male environment. Those are my partners, and we team together to create solutions. So I hope that helps you to understand why I felt comfortable moving. I call it a pivot. I didn't leave nursing. I haven't left it. I bring everything in that I've learned in nursing for 30 plus years with me to cyber. I'm working alongside the tech teams, and I'm constantly studying. I'm finishing up a master's degree in cybersecurity management as we speak, and I'm excited. Thank you for asking.
Awesome, awesome. And there are a number of questions that are actually popping up as you're actually thinking about your journey. And one of the things is that there are a number of people, especially those who are new to the industry. Um, for example, as soon as they start to, and in many cases, they listen to these stories, and for some of them, they do not have any amount of experience. They are fresh from universities, colleges, they want to get into cybersecurity, here it is that you have some amount of experience. I mean, not directly related to cybersecurity, but you were able to bridge the gap in terms of creating that alignment. Can you spend some time to share with us more in terms of how were you able to create that bridge, that alignment from a medical or from the being an army veteran to using those experiences to actually align yourself into cybersecurity? In that it is cybersecurity is on one side, on the east, medical field, for example, is on the west. How do you actually create that merger?
Well, we all need each other to survive. And so that's the mindset I have going into any project, going into any profession. If I know some things and you know some things and we're on a team together, then we both know if we work together, we both know more than either of us individually know. And that was my rationale how I went into cyber. My first cyber class, somebody invited me to a networking event. Well, I am a business owner of two small businesses. So networking is not, I thought, strange to me. But when I got to this networking event, it wasn't networking with food and drinks and talking about each other's businesses and how we could partner. It was about Network Plus, the CompTIA at Network Plus certification, which I had never heard of. So this helps me to answer your question more directly. Number one, get in the room. Get in the room with the type of people doing the type of thing professionally that you think you want to do. Walk through the door, introduce yourself, have some business cards or electronic business card, have your resume with you, and talk about, like I did, the preparation that I had through life. Remember, I told you the story of my mother passing early in life. She was only 39. Well, that grew me up because I ended up in a situation where I had to take care of little kids that were smaller than me. So I knew about leadership. I knew about caring for other people. I used nursing to go through the ranks of nursing in education, undergrad, grad school, even applied to a couple doctoral programs. Um, Use whatever you have because you have skills that you have to sit down with yourself and identify. They are transferable. A lot of your skills are transferable to cybersecurity. And then you start reading. There's no substitute for reading. You know, I started reading about an organization that's international, a nonprofit organization called ISC Squared. They are the ones that uh, sponsor the very, very prestigious certification, the CISSP. So you know what I did? I called them. I called the ISC Squared office in June, I think it was of 2019 or 2018, and I introduced myself. I said, I'm Marylyn Harris. I'm a nurse pivoting to cybersecurity. I read about your organization and I would like to know more and be aligned with you. And I was just wondering if you would like to tell my story. And guess what? They said yes. They didn't know me. ISC Squared is like up here in terms of being an organization that has helped thousands of people with their training and their certifications. I started at the top. I walked in the door and introduced myself another way that's not common for many professionals because they feel uneasy about doing that. I didn't feel uneasy because I had a job for many years of my life and I'm still on that job from time to time. It's called being a nurse. That job requires that you push and you study and you learn more and you know more and you help more people. I had that same job in the US Army and guess what? That same job went back to what I've experienced since I was a little girl. I had that job at home. And so I sat down with myself and looked at all my transferable skills. And then I read a book called Strengths Finder 2.0 by Thomas Rath. And I realized what my skill set was. And everywhere I went, I discussed it. I made sure people understood it. And if you find me on LinkedIn, you'll read about it. I just walked indoors and I acted like I was supposed to be there because I am supposed to be where I am. Does
Or
that make sense?
sure, I mean, quite profound. And I definitely, when you I mean, all that I've actually said makes so much sense in that so often, I mean, just talking from my experience, I can actually relate to what it is that you're talking about in terms of making your presence known, being prepared at all times for opportunities. And so often is that there are people who want to get into cybersecurity or whichever field it is, but it's almost like they're waiting for things to fall um, within their scope. And so all the times
No,
you have to actually take that initiative, that step, that drive, and at times it might not be where it is that you want to go or the starting point that you want, but it's a matter of actually getting yourself within an environment that can actually take you to that next level, as you have rightly said before. So can you share more insights on having that holistic approach to excelling within your cybersecurity journey? And this is what I mean. So often when we, for example, within cybersecurity, someone might be so tunnel vision. I want to be for example, an incident responder or a forensic, and all it is that they do is focus on this. But there's no always understanding in terms of the business. How do you relate to people? What it is that I do? What's the importance of actually wanting to do what I do? So that's the background from which I come with that question in terms of having that holistic
I love
mindset.
that question. I love that question because in your question, there's all the answers that someone needs. Excuse me. We need to be all of it in cybersecurity. I mean, yeah, I just took my forensics class and I realized that's not for me, that space. But I needed to know about it, so I needed to study it for a while so I could have an intelligent conversation about it. By not being afraid to pursue these aspects of cybersecurity, it can be research, marketing. Cybersecurity has, I don't know how many places that you can get in, but this is how I believe. Bring something to the field. Don't come in with the mindset that you're coming in as a person that's with empty hands. Evaluate yourself and your skill set. If you've been living any amount of time, you have some skills. Those are the ones you focus on. Tell the truth. I went to war for this country. I'm an American. I was in the Army for 11 years. I served abroad and I served during the war. That experience alone taught me a lifetime of skills. And so I want you to look at your life like that. Don't say you don't have any cybersecurity skills, because yes, you do. If you know how to listen, if you know how to get along with the team, if you just have an introductory certification, that's fine. If you don't, you can get online. They're everywhere for free. The introductory certifications that are needed in cybersecurity. Some people start in marketing, others start as a researcher, others start as just writing about cybersecurity in a journalistic type way. Some cybersecurity roles do not involve 100% tech. But if you want to lead, you have to know more, you have to do more, and you have to study more. Because look at the news, look at the hacks that are going on from hotels to hospitals. If you've worked in a hospital, if you've worked in a hotel, you have learned some skills. So don't think of it as, I don't have any skills in cybersecurity. Read, study. You don't have to be as brazen as I was to call ISC squared. I call it belief in myself. That's what I call it. I knew that I came from an environment and an academic environment, a home environment, an academic environment, and a professional environment where I had skills that were transferable. And all I did was walked inside the door or walked to the newspaper counter, so to speak, and told the people on the other side who I was and what my skill set is, and how this is one very important thing, how much I'm willing and able to learn more about cybersecurity than I know while I'm walking through the door the first time. I'm willing to learn. You heard me say, I'm studying. I don't have to get another master's degree, but I want to be prepared. And so think about that. But start with what you already have in place. Start with a self assessment, maybe even a SWOT analysis. All of these things will help you with your confidence when you go in a room and you don't know the language that they're speaking, and they're speaking tech. They're speaking to cyber language. You can learn to speak it too. I did.
Perfect. I definitely like that part in terms of doing your self-assessment and doing that SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities, and the list goes on. That's very, very important to look at where you are at in terms of where it is that you want to go. And very important to being able to have those informed, intelligent discussions. And you have
Oh,
rightly highlighted those points. I can recall when COVID initially started, that was, to be honest, during that period of COVID, I have never, looking back at my life, what I have actually achieved in terms of deep diving, in terms of learning, investing in my knowledge base. I have never done that during my overall lifetime in terms of the amount of knowledge that I was able to absorb within a very short period of time. I've learned so much for the sake of having informed discussion. I mean, so that at the end of the day, you're able to say, these are the areas that I really want to focus on. And that is one of the approaches that I always seek to share with upcoming cyber folks, that guys, you cannot only be focusing on X, you have to have that holistic approach. And at the same time, then you focus or specialize in a particular area. So you have rightly said, I mean, in alignment with what I was actually thinking. Now, in all of this, you,
I like how you
okay,
use the word holistic,
yes,
because that is a word we use and overuse in healthcare. And I like how you use it. You feel comfortable using it and you implement it. And that's what I'm saying. We have more in common than we don't. People that are coming to cyber from a trade or organization that's not cyber, you have to sit down with yourself and do an honest assessment. If not, you will go out into the communities and you will be stumped in conversation when they ask you questions. There's no need to be stumped. You have a roadmap now. You know those things to do.
sure, exactly. Um, so in all of this, there must have been a number of challenges. I know for sure that this journey was not just a straight line. At least not for me. So there must have been some amount of challenges in terms of pivoting from one point to the next to get to where you're at. Can you share some of those challenges and ways in which you were able to overcome these?
I mean, please believe me when I tell you there weren't any big challenges, because I knew that cybersecurity needed me and I wanted to be needed, if that makes sense. Really, I live in Houston, Texas, and in 2018 to now, there are loads of cybersecurity conferences that come through Houston. And this is how I learned. In my academic life, I was studying cybersecurity. I went through the traditional path, A plus, CompTIA A plus, CompTIA Network plus, CompTIA Security plus, Networking plus, and Security plus. And then I was very curious about other certs, but I allowed myself the time to learn incrementally. The other thing I did is I joined with organizations that had programs to teach me of what I didn't know, people to mentor me, and as well as people to send me to amazing events. I have my CV here to the right, and I just want you to know some of the places that I've been able to go to. I've been to Black Hat, and if you don't know what it is, you should really look it up. The Black Hat Conference 2 times as a scholar. I've been to the Grace Hopper Conference as a scholar. I've been to RSA as a student scholar. I've been to ISC Squared. If you don't know those acronyms, over time you will learn them. These are cybersecurity entities. And I just don't feel like once I was confident with me, when I walked in the room, I walked through the door. I walked through the door and I asked loads of questions. I was the first person to raise my hand to request a mentor. And at this juncture, at the 5 year juncture this year, all of those things help. I never had to feel like I couldn't make it or like I wouldn't be able to get along with the team because I didn't know enough. I was realistic. about what I did know and definitely more realistic about what I didn't know, I still had value and provided value. And people see the value in you that sometimes you don't see in yourself. And so don't be afraid to walk through the doors. They say, how did you do it? Literally, I just walked through the doors. If I was reading the newspaper and there was a tech conference in town, I either paid a small fee and very small. I really have not paid for anything. Black Hat costs $2,500 to get in the door. Um, I paid a small fee or knew somebody that could get me in, and I just observed. I just listened to what they were talking about. I didn't know all the acronyms. I didn't know the difference between an ISC squared and a CompTIA when I started. All I know, I was excited and willing to embrace cybersecurity because this was my why. My colleagues in the medical field for many, many years, a couple decades now, I knew hospitals would be getting hacked more than they ever had before once I understood more cybersecurity, what it was and what it wasn't, because I know how we live and work in healthcare. So I had that insight. And for those that are listening, that are thinking about cybersecurity, you can also pursue this the safe way. Just get online. I'm in about 15 technology organizations. They have training, they have scholarships, they have collaborations with the cybersecurity ecosystem entities. There is a global demand for cybersecurity professionals. They need us. That's another thing that's important.
Oh, great. And just for you have actually touched a very important point there, talking about the fact that so often and this is almost like opening up another can of worm for a different conversation. So often we hear about the demand. This is almost like a cliche sort of a conversation, if you want to describe it that way. There's always this demand, so many conversations that there is so much demand, but yet still, it's almost like you have more people trying to get in, and this is so difficult, nonetheless, to get into cybersecurity. Um, is there a particular advice that you would want to share with upcoming cybersecurity professional in terms of actually how it is that they can actually stand out from the rest to
Yes,
move forward?
yes. And that is an excellent question that I think first, everybody that's interested in cyber and is not in it should ask themselves, what do I bring to the table? Remember earlier, these are not my words. These are the words of someone I heard say at a conference. Don't come to cybersecurity thinking in terms of what you can get from cyber. You're going to get a decent wage. You're going to have global opportunities. All of that is a given. But what do you bring? And so it goes back to that self assessment. It goes back to that strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats SWOT analysis. This is just between you and yourself. You don't have to tell anybody. If you are good at communication, hold on to that. Remember that in a conversation when you go to your tech events. If you are good at interacting with people, sales, if you are good at technology, maybe you built your own home lab, all the things that you've done, if you've lived to even be 20, you have some things you can talk about positively about yourself. If you have huge initiative, this is my third master's degree. If you have huge self initiative, that is a point you can dwell on in your conversation with people in technology to say, if I see a maybe a help desk job. I'm interested in working the help desk. I don't have my certifications yet, but I'm working on my certifications in the evenings when I get off my current job. If you can show initiative, if you can show that you want it and you have the capability to learn and the willingness to learn, there's jobs out there for you. There's plenty of jobs out there for you. Now, you might not start at a six-figure job, but you can get there.
Those are priceless advice. I mean, coming from experience, you spoke about your challenges, you spoke about your journey, the way in which you were able to navigate your way. And all of us will have various experiences and challenges along our journey. So at the end of the day, it's all about being focused, guys. Know what it is that you want, and to really be determined and persistent and consistent and be ready for the opportunity. And as you have rightly said, Marilyn, to be a person of value that organizations and the wider society can actually benefit from. So, I mean, Marilyn, it was indeed a wonderful uh, pleasure having you, having this conversation. And I definitely look forward to many, many more awesome conversations in the near future.
And thank you so much for having me. I want to give a special uh, shout out to any women that are hearing this broadcast. That is one of your superpowers, being a woman. Come on in. Come on in. We're waiting on you.
Awesome, definitely. Very great note to end on. So, guys, there we have it. Yet in another wonderful series in terms of our Cyber JA conversation. So, stay tuned, stay connected for all future recordings on the Cyber JA podcast with me, your host, Richard Perry.